Far Side Movie Reviews.
All right. All right, Farsiders. So, guys, we are going to get into the AMC series Into the Badlands today. This is a show that I stumbled upon. You guys know that I'm really like always kind of trying to raise my streaming game. So whenever I find something interesting on Netflix, on Hulu, on Amazon Prime, or even on cable TV that I think you guys can get into, I try and bring it to you because I do realize that you guys don't always go to the movies like me. You can't, or you just don't care, but sometimes you're looking for something that you can really get into at home. So I want that to be part of our community. I want that to be part of Far Side Movie Reviews as well, so I can give you guys all that you might be looking for when it just comes to your viewing entertainment. So that's how I stumbled on to Into the Badlands. I was on Netflix, I saw the thumbnail, I was like, wow, this looks interesting. And I just ended up watching or binging the whole series. It was really easy to do because it was so engrossing for me, so fascinating, the different elements that are going on in this show. It was an easy binge, and I was hooked from then on out. I couldn't wait for season 2, which came out last week. Season 2, episode 1 came out last week. We're going to get into that. And season 2, episode 2 actually comes out tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on AMC. So my plan is to really follow each episode. I'm not really sure how I'm going to do that, you guys. I actually even thought about maybe doing a live stream of each episode and us just watching it together, and I'm just reacting to it, and then we have some dialogue around that. I'm not really sure. We'll see how that goes. I don't even know how many of you guys are interested in this. I don't know how many of you guys are into it. I don't know. Honestly, this is for me to give you something to watch, but this is for me just as an outlet, putting it out there on YouTube in the Far Side community, and hopefully pulling people into this that are interested in this series as well, so that we can have some dialogue about it, but also introducing it to you, and hopefully as we talk about it more, you'll be like, man, I gotta, yeah, Al is like into that. And then you will join me as well and just kind of tracking this series, because I do think it's really good. And we do know that AMC has a reputation for actually providing pretty good series that are really character driven, but at the same time give you nice action and some of the other things that you might be looking for in a series that you just really kind of want to sink your teeth into. We know that because they've had The Walking Dead here, they've had Breaking Bad, and those have both had really big, strong fan bases. So they've got a reputation for putting out good stuff. All right. So that said, here's what we're going to do. We are going to get into the Badlands. This is season 1. This is not really going to be a spoiler. It might be spoiler-ish, I guess you might say, because I'm not really going to talk about what goes on so much in the narrative. What I want to do here is I want to introduce you to the cast. I have them set up over here. We'll give a synopsis of what's happening in the series, but I want to spend most of the time really kind of talking about the structure of the narrative here, because I think it's really interesting, and what this series has done to make it just, for me, insanely entertaining outside of just the character and the structure that they've set up. They've added something that just makes it mind-blowingly interesting to watch. So that's really what I want to do with this video. All right, so here we go. So this is the cast of Enter the Badlands. Daniel Wu plays a character named Sunny. Aramis Knight plays a character named MK. Really fascinating character. Some really interesting stuff going on with him. Emily Beecham plays one of my favorite characters in this series. She plays a character called the Widow, and I'm just so captivated with her and what's going on with her. There's a lot of layers to her character, and it's really interesting as they begin to reveal those layers. You really want to know what's going on with her. Sarah Bolger plays a character named Jade. Martin Sulkus plays a really interesting character as well. I believe Martin Sulkus is how you pronounce that name. Named Quinn. Quinn is really interesting. Really interesting. Orla Brady plays Lydia, who's Quinn's wife. Madeline Mantock plays Vale. Oliver Stark plays a character named Ryder, and Ali Leonidas plays a character named Tilda. So that is pretty much the cast of stars in season 1. Now there is another character in season 1. I'm not going to tell you who that is. You guys got to check it out, but you will probably notice him, because I remember when I saw him, I was like, is that? Oh, shoot, that sure is. And I was surprised to see him in there. You got to check him out to see who it is I'm talking about. But those are the major players in season 1 of Into the Badlands. So here's what's happened. This is set in a post-apocalyptic future, and the land has pretty much been devastated by war, such so that A lot of things have changed in the land, a lot of destruction everywhere. There are some things that are still in place, but the land pretty much has been devastated. There are still automobiles are still active. There's still electricity, but the landscape itself has changed as well, and the societal structure is just gone. All right. When we first start this series, there is just no structure at all. Things are just in disarray. So what happens here is a feudal system is set up in the Badlands, and you have barons that are over different sections of the Badlands, and then you have different tiers of people under the barons. So that's what I was talking about when I said I want to kind of get into the structure, because I'm telling you, because of how they've set the system up in the narrative with the different structure of people groups, it really makes everything very fascinating. The dynamics that are going on here are really interesting, even with some of the names that I have talked about in terms of the folks starring in this are really interesting as you see these different tiers or class of people interact with each other to survive and also to try and do some other things in this narrative Into the Badlands. So let's talk about what they are. So the highest class or the top tier class would be considered the barons in this movie. And for example, the character, where is he? Martin Sokus plays Quinn, who is one of the barons. So the barons are pretty much the iron fist rulers of the land. They provide the law and order, and the folks that are under them are really kind of subject to their rule. So you have the barons, and the barons control different sections of the land, and each one of these different sections controls some kind of resource that the other sections need to survive, to keep things going. So they share these resources with each other as a result of that. Now, under the barons are something called clippers, and clippers are really important to this structure because they really do provide the framework for law and order. And that's one of the reasons why the people in the Badlands kind of flocked to the barons, because things were so crazy. They needed a structure to help keep them safe, and they figured if they aligned themselves with certain barons, the barons in return would provide that safety for them or that structure for them. I don't know if I mentioned or not, you guys, this whole series is loosely based off of Chinese folklore, I think from the Ming Dynasty, called Journey to the West, which I thought was kind of interesting because I was wondering kind of where the structure of this came from. So that's a little bit of information for you. So the people have aligned themselves under the barons, and they did it for protection because, again, everything was just crazy. People were doing what they wanted to do. So the barons provide kind of some structure of civilization, and they provide protection. And the clippers are the army force that's based under the barons. And it was actually a very desirable position in this series because they got the best of everything. I mean, they got the best food. They could kind of pretty much have the freedom to do the things that they wanted to do. But what they forfeit are their rights to do anything outside of what is the Baron's will. They are committed totally, unquestionably to the will of the Baron. The Baron says act and they act. They don't ask any questions. They just do. And as a result of that, they have given up the ability to get married. So they cannot get married. They cannot have a family because all of those things, right, they split or they divide or they take away your complete allegiance from the Baron. So you do have that force. And as I said, for the men in society, it was a very coveted position because of all the things that came along with it. So a lot of them had desires to become clippers. It was a position that was looked upon. It was something that the young men and the young boys were excited to gain access to. So you had them. Then under them, you had something called dolls, which were females, and it really is, unfortunately, just like it sounds, they were really kind of just a pleasure source for the different males in the society. And under them, you have something called Cogs. Now, Cogs are very interesting because Cogs are really like human commodity. They are essentially slaves, is really what they are. And they provide kind of the hard work or the I was going to say menial, but I don't even know if that's the right word. But they provide kind of the working class in the sense that they are the ones that tend the poppy fields. They are the ones that tend to work the oil fields in the industry. So they are the labor force of the barons. And as a result, again, the baron provides them with some kind of semblance of community and safety, as well as he provides them food and all that kind of good stuff. So as a result of that, they work for the Baron as well. But they are not treated well. I mean, literally, they are seen as objects of of servitude, or they're just part of the workforce. Then you have kind of a fringe group that's not part of anyone, and they're called the nomads, and they just essentially roam the land and they just do what they want to do. They take what they want to take, they do what they want to do, they don't answer to any baron, they are kind of their own people group in and of themselves. Then you have an interesting character called the River King as well. And the River King is interesting because he's a single guy that controls the waterways in the Badlands. So whenever there's anything that needs to be transported back and forth, that is done by the River King. He is not a baron, he has no allegiance to any of the barons, no allegiance kind of, but he pretty much works with all of them just to get things transported to and through the water lanes, or by the waterways, and that is his job. And then there's also kind of a fringe group, which is a religious group, and they're really interesting because there is not a whole bunch of people who subscribe to their ideology. So they really are kind of on the outskirts of the Badlands, not physically, but just socially. They're really on the outskirts of the Badlands. But what's interesting about them is they are bigger players in what's going on than we realize in the Badlands. They have some ties in the Badlands that we began to find out more about as the season rolls on, that are actually very important as to the dynamics of what's happening even within the structure of the different barons in the different areas in the Badlands. So as that unfolds, it's really, really interesting. So also I wanted to talk finally about the fight choreography for Into the Badlands, because it's fabulous. It's martial arts to me done so well. It's brutal, it's visceral. So if you like that kind of thing, you will really enjoy this. But the way that the fight choreography is pulled off is done so well, and I actually got to see kind of a behind the scenes look at that. And these guys practice hard, and it shows. It shows when you see how well the fight scenes are put together. And what's really cool about this is everything is done with kind of ancient weapons, swords and shields and knives and things like that, because guns are outlawed. As a result of the devastation that came from the war, guns are outlawed. So now these guys have taken to kind of older forms of weaponry to protect themselves, and the combat is amazing. So that's really all I wanted to say about Into the Badlands. That's really a summation of season one. See, it wasn't too much of a spoiler. I didn't really give too much of the storyline away or what went on, just kind of the structure of things. But I'll tell you, it is very interesting because as you watch the dynamics of how the people from the different class groups interact with each other, and how everybody in this narrative is really in some way, shape, form, or fashion playing an angle. And it's really fascinating to see how all of that plays out and what the consequences are for some of their actions. It really is story driven. It's really a powerful story, but it's also a lot of fun to watch when they weave in the fight sequences and they weave in the different motivations and all of that good stuff. So it's got all these elements that make it really enjoyable for me on a lot of different levels. I'm hoping it's that way for you as well. Guys, this is kind of my synopsis of Into the Badlands season 1. From here on out, we will jump into season 2 and we will be talking about each episode of Into the Badlands. So if you've not seen it, again, you can binge it on Netflix or you can watch it on demand and just catch up. Like I said, 6 episodes, not too much, and it's really, really kind of a fast pace or a fast burn because they're so interesting that you really kind of move through from one to the next. The first one just had me hooked after the first 20 minutes, and then when I started to see the different characters and kind of the different aspects of what was going on with the structure, I was like, wow, this is really good. So hopefully you guys will check this out. I'm looking forward to it. It's something that I'm really excited about. Guys, thank you so much as always for taking the time out to watch this. If you like this, give it a thumbs up. If you've seen this, please comment and let me know what you think. As always, if you don't like this, give it a thumbs down. I am not one of those folks who frowns upon that. That's fine with me, but if you don't like it, I do ask you to comment and tell me what is the problem you had with what we talked about here. Guys, please make sure that you ding! Don't forget to hit that notification button so that you can see when things are coming out next. I try not to post a whole lot. It really just does depend on what's going on at the time in the world of movie making and maybe streaming. But at least twice a week I will try and post. And in most cases that is on a Friday and a Sunday. So guys, thanks again. Please make sure that you subscribe. You can click that button with me doing like that. and you can subscribe that way, or there's some white text at the bottom that says subscribe here or something like that, I think. All right, you guys, I am done, and with that, I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.